So if you didn't know that there was an insurrection in America just 1 year ago tomorrow, you could have turned on your TV today to watch the U.S. Attorney General and thought, oh, look at that nice, responsible public servant talking about the importance of prosecuting the bad guys. Isn't it great to have a non-ogreish AG unlike the previous 4 years? But the thing is, Merrick Garland's speech today was about the 1 year anniversary of a literal and unprecedented attack on American democracy and an ongoing domestic terrorism threat that is still putting Americans and democracy at risk as of today. So we no longer live in a world where we can calmly talk about the wholesome job of the DOJ or about the stability of American democracy. Maybe we never did. Garland clearly felt the need to speak out on the anniversary of the 1 year mark from January 6th after getting criticized for the DOJ not doing enough to hold the insurrectionists accountable. And he threw those critics a tiny little bone, saying the department would go after perpetrators on all levels.
The actions we have taken thus far will not be our last. The Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law, whether they were present that day or were otherwise criminally responsible for the assault on our democracy. We will follow the facts wherever they lead.
Garland also described some of the grisly threats lawmakers from both parties have received, but then he used those specific examples to literally both sides the problem of political violence.
A member of Congress was threatened in a gruesome voicemail that asked if she had ever seen what a .50 caliber shell does to a human head. Another member of Congress, an Iraq War veteran and Purple Heart recipient, received threats that left her terrified for her family. These acts and threats of violence are not associated with any one set of partisan or ideological views.
I mean, there's nothing partisan and ideological about the threats that this democracy faces today? Really? Really, Merrick? After a literal MAGA crowd tried to stage a coup and threatened to hang Mike Pence and brought a noose to do it? Really? Really? I'm joined now by Elie Mystal, justice correspondent for The Nation, and Al Franken, former Democratic senator from Minnesota and the host of the Al Franken podcast. And I'm sorry, Elie, I was on Twitter reading what you were tweeting because I'm like, let me follow Elie and see what he's saying. And you posted one thing saying, he threw a bone at least to say he's going to investigate. I'm like, okay, maybe I should be hopeful. And then he said that line where he said, there's nothing ideological or partisan about it. The speech was literally about one partisan side and people who support one party literally having an insurrection in the Capitol. That was the point of the speech. Your thoughts on the both sidesism?
Yeah, look, if Merrick Garland is a dedicated public servant, if we needed a mall cop to stop the kids from stealing constitutional democracy out of the hot topic, he'd be doing great. But we need something a little bit more than that, and that's where I have some issues with his prosecution. Look, there is nuance here. If Merrick Garland, and it's amazing to me to think that Merrick Garland defenders are going to think this is a compliment, but if Merrick Garland has a secret plan to one day hold the terrorists accountable for attacking the Capitol, then this is exactly what his investigation would look like. These defenders have a point. He needs more time. He could be building a case. The problem is that if Merrick Garland was just going to just going to fire at the low-hanging fruits and get a couple of QAnon shamans and not actually go after the people who aided and abetted this insurrection, the powerful politically connected people in Congress who helped these people, this is also exactly what his investigation would look like. So it really comes down to whether or not you trust Merrick Garland. And I don't know about you, Joy, but I remember I've got too many scars from other great white hopes. I remember when Robert Mueller was going to come and put everything right? So I don't have a whole lot left to trust.
Let me play another one, Senator Franken. This is another one where we hired that guy. We're paying him. Our tax dollars are paying Merrick Garland to deal with these threats to our democracy. But here's who he said is responsible for fixing all this. Here's Merrick Garland again.
The Justice Department cannot do it alone. The responsibility to bring an end to violence and threats of violence against those who serve the public is one that all Americans share. We are all Americans. We must protect each other. The responsibility to preserve democracy and to maintain faith in the legitimacy of its essential processes lies with every elected official and with every American.
Okay, yeah, everybody should be nice to each other. Al Franken, this would be like if there was a fire, you called 911 and the fire department said, all of your neighbors, every neighbor, is responsible together. No, you're who's been hired to fight fires. You fight the fire. It doesn't sound like he's taking a whole lot of responsibility for doing anything about all this mess. Your thoughts?
I kind of disagree with you on this. I was heartened by what he was talking about. He was basically saying, when he said anybody at any level, I mean, right now I've been hearing the evidence, and the most guilty person that I can see right now is Donald Trump. And I actually, everything we've been hearing, all the evidence we've been hearing points that way. And basically, what he was saying is there's a process to do this. And if you don't follow it, and I'm sure he's saying, look, we're doing this, we just don't talk about it. And if you don't follow the right process, it can be overturned. So he's going to make sure this sticks. I was hardened. Neil Katyal was hardened by this speech as well. And this was a serious speech. And yes, he was talking an aspirational thing for the American people, which is we all have to, try to, as a society, disparage people who are being violent and get a handle on that. But it didn't contradict to me what I heard.
Well, here's my challenge, though, and I'll ask you, and I'll ask both of you. But this is not consistently the case, though. I still am old enough to remember that James Comey did talk about it. Literally 11 days before an election, he decided to talk about what they were doing vis-a-vis Hillary Clinton and some emails and such. And he thought that was appropriate. Then 3 days before the election, did it again. The thing is, this is asymmetric warfare.
I yelled at him. I yelled at him. I yelled at him in the skiff.
But what I'm saying is
he came to talk. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
He came to talk to our caucus about some FBI stuff in the skiff, the secure room, and I yelled at him because what he did was kind of a vanity, moral vanity. I thought he broke the department policies by raising something while it was happening. That was a disgrace, and it also cost Hillary the election, along with other stuff as well. But no, that was awful. This is very, very, very different.
But it is obviously very different. But let me just play one more piece of sound. This is Ruben Gallego making some comments about what he thinks of Merrick Garland and the way he's conducted things so far. Here's Ruben Gallego.
I think Merrick Garland has been extremely weak, and I think there should be a lot more of the organizers of January 6th that should be arrested by now. The problem that we have right now is that we have a very obstructionist Republican Party that should be part of helping us decide how to save democracy instead of trying to cover up for their crimes. And you have, again, an attorney general who is, feckless and has not been helpful in terms of preserving our democracy.
My problem with it, and I think in theory what Al Franken said is true, but the problem is that it is asymmetric, Ellie. If Donald's last name was Clinton and he was a Democrat, I have no doubt whatsoever that he would already have been prosecuted. There would already be so much legal action being thrown at him. I think that he's sort of in this bubble of, I don't know. I'm going to let you talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. This doesn't happen if the perpetrators are black. And I think we all kind of know that, right? Because we don't have to just go on our feelings about Merrick Garland. We have actual numbers, right? We have stats. 71 people so far have been sentenced behind January 6th. And what we see is the vast majority of them have gotten very light sentences, no jail time at all for the most of them. 56 people have been convicted for picketing, parading inside a Capitol building. 56 people. Is it too much to ask that those 56 people get at least what a person in Northeast D.C. would get for having an ounce of crack cocaine? Is that literally too much to ask? Because it seems like it shouldn't be. It seems like if you go into the Capitol with the intent to go search for Mike Pence and other members of Congress to yell and intimidate them into stealing an election, you should at least get as much as the crackhead. And that's what I think you're kind of saying.
There have been more consequences for Black Lives Matter voters than much more consequences. It is unbelievable that this appears that they're going to get away with it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. He spoke to that. He said that he's getting those people to cooperate. And what he wants to do is get the organizers. And the way you do that, this is how you do prosecutions. And that's no mystery. And so that was the beginning of his speech, which is he talked about that exactly.
I heard that, but I'm also saying that we haven't seen any of this come to pass. And so if you want to say, like with Mueller, that we should just trust the process, okay, but we've been down this road.
And it's urgent. It's urgent. Our democracy is under tremendous stress now, not a year from now. Elie Mystal, Al Franken, I'm sorry, we're out of time. I appreciate you both. Thank you both very much. Happy New Year.